Many have made the suggestion that every crypto cycle ends because of a leverage bubble burst. This cycle, could the treasury company frenzy serve as a leverage that will end the cycle? Thanks to you and the team doing all the hard work. Yeah, this is one I think about all the time. As you know, historically, my third YouTube video ever was about MicroStrategy, believe it or not. And a lot of stuff has happened right now. We do have a couple of frenzies going on, some crazy stuff happening. We saw last week with Tom Lee and others. But let's get into some fundamentals. I'll take a bigger picture of where we are with Bitcoin and look at some wallet addresses. So I'd like to take a minute and walk around how kind of cycles are so important in life and everything in investing. So I'm going to dwell on this a little bit. And yes, the image is probably not the best, but I hope you understand. We're going to start at the top, the early visionaries. And this applies to everything. You know, I always say, get in early, get in hard. It's so important. I didn't get into Bitcoin till the second tier adopter category, by the way. I was not. I heard about it, but I thought it was a scam and, you know, being very conservative. But the early people are the pioneers, the cypherpunks, the cryptographers, the tech enthusiasts, etc., that got in at $10 and $100. They are called the smart early doctors, I like to refer to them as. And they saw what could be done. They understood how to mine, and they bought it for cents and held through volatility. And we had cool people as well, like Hal Finney, who received the first Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi Nakamoto. Henrik in Denmark. Tak. Mega tak. Hope that's right. Thank you very much. The second tier, 2013 to 2017. This includes early retail investors like me, tech-savvy individuals like to be early on trends, and small-scale speculators. And then we have the corporate treasury first mover, MicroStrategy. And I thought, you know, in 2020, 2021, I thought especially in 2021, a lot of people would follow Michael Saylor, but very few did. People like Elon Musk did with Tesla and SpaceX, but no others really until later. And then you have the corporate followers, which includes exactly what Mr. Burns says, the treasuries, the corporates, the zombie companies that have nothing going on, nothing. But they say, well, we can pump our stock if we buy some Bitcoin or whatever. And that's kind of what we're going through right now. And then the pensions and the institutional investors, you know, the ETFs, the pension funds, the sovereigns, and so much more. And then the governments, that'll come late. But that is kind of the way I look at the cycle. And in the categories for Bitcoin, it might be slightly off, but directionally, it's very correct. And again, I'm in the second tier adopter and was the very first guy to adopt the MicroStrategy playbook. And another way of thinking about this too, and again, the reason I'm spending time on this is so important in investing. And an analogy is a forest fire. I love these analogies. I was trying to think one up last night as to, you know, what it would look like. Well, forest fire, spread. And I will spend time talking about network effects because a forest fire, it's a horrible thing, I know, but it also is a network effect. So you've got the original people, the spark, you know, lighting a piece of dry grass or something in the corner of the forest. Then you have the brush fire, more grass spreads, maybe some shrubs, maybe some small trees, burning brighter, drawing attention. Then the tree line be the first corporate movers. Fire reaches all the trees, and then the forest spread, the corporate followers, more forests burn. And then the canopy blaze, which is like the pensions and the institutions and TradFi, desperate for a solution. They jump in too. And then the ecosystem shift. I don't know how to describe that, but basically the whole forest is burned down, like what happens in California quite often. But that's kind of another crude way to think about it. But really, we'll be touching on network effects in a minute, but this is all so important. And I'm painting, as usual, the questions blend into each other, and that's why they're so great. They make me think. But why, people ask, why do the bigger players move slower? Well, they're conservative. They have a bureaucracy. They're risk averse. There's an information lag. There's no trust. There's no regulation. There's no rails. There's no accounting. There's inertia. Why change stuff? Now we have a new breed of companies that are dead. I always say 60 to 40 to 60% of the S&P 500 are zombie companies that won't be around in 2030. I hear other people now saying that for the first time ever. It's brilliant. And we can probably up that 60 to 40% to higher, like 80% of companies will be toast. But these companies now that are zombies, all of a sudden they're moving fast because they watched what happened with Sailor. Now, getting back to kind of the big point, I'll turn my camera off so I'm not blocking this chart. This chart is so important. I do the cohort wallet moves every quarter now for years and years and years. And I had a huge conclusion late in 2024 that dolphins were it. Okay. The dolphin cohort. And this goes back to exactly what's going on. As I'm mentioning, these are the, let me try to make sure I get the right number. This is the 100 to 1,000 Bitcoin wallets. They're typically treasuries. They begin at treasuries and they've got different allocations for different wallets, perhaps in the same treasury. But you can see here, Anglo Baxton, thank you so much, all the blue on these 100 to 1,000 treasury wallets. That is who is driving this market since 2024. Blue treasuries. You know, if you're buying 100 Bitcoin or 1,000 Bitcoin, you are not a retail investor, okay? You might be a billionaire, you might be a sovereign or a pension, but you are not a retail investor. And pensions typically allocate to things like MicroStrategy and stuff. But this is the game we're in. So, Mr. Burns, you're right. This is the game that could trigger the problem that comes next. And as a long-winded introduction to getting to the point is this. This is the HODL model that we have. Basically, we had Marathon Mining that has a ton of IP, a ton of real estate, millions of rigs, energy contracts, you name it. They have everything. And they were trading at 0.97 to their bag of Bitcoin last week. Now they're back up to 116 because the miners have all popped. So there's a 16% premium. But this is a sign of what could happen in the future. And that is the treasuries, Marathon's a miner. They mine 700 Bitcoin a month or a quarter. No, a month. Sorry, a month. And they do it quite profitably. But they were even at a huge discount. So what's going to happen to the rest of them, particularly the zombie companies that don't have a business? They are lacking sustainable business models, revenue. Maybe they have debt. And if there is a market correction in Bitcoin, like a steep one, 30 to 40%, this will make everybody nervous and skittish. They will sell their treasury companies, and NAV premiums will go probably to zero and then negative. Again, we've seen negative already. We saw it with Marathon. We saw it with a couple of others. I think GNS or one of those was negative as well. And that could cause these zombie companies to do forced selling, et cetera, et cetera. And that could lean towards significant risk. So therefore, you are right. I do see this happening. Is it leverage? You could argue it's leverage. The companies are borrowing money to buy Bitcoin. But the problem right now is all these treasuries, Mr. Burns, they're coming in late. Pomp just started one. He started buying at 106,000. You do this when Bitcoin's 30,000, 15,000, 40,000, not so close to the top so late in the cycle. But there is a theory as well that this cycle could go on forever if we get more strategic Bitcoin reserves. If the US government buys Bitcoin, which I'll talk about in a minute, then it's all bets are off. We go to the moon, everybody. So that's kind of the skinny. Yes, you are dead right, Mr. Burns. Liquidity, leverage, whatever you want to talk about, cascading liquidations could trigger the downturn next. How deep it'll be, I don't think it'll be that bad because there's a constant bid coming in, and there are some companies that still have it at a good profit. But if Bitcoin falls below 70K, that could cause a world of hurt. So thank you for the question. Next question, and this is again related to Bitcoin. Hi James, is this a good time to swap Bitcoin for Sol? A lot of people are finding ways to rotate and trade, and it's a very powerful method. We'll talk more about that too in a minute. A lot to cover in this video. From a TA perspective, this is Solana going back 4 or 5 years over Bitcoin. Okay, I'll move myself to the bottom right corner. The chart is screaming. Yes, there are times when Solana smokes Bitcoin, but it typically happens very fast. Look at the red shadow on this chart. That's the bear market. Look what happens before the bear market kicks in. You get the euphoric phase. Right now, the pair Sol over Bitcoin is just above level 1. The trend is looking very strong. There's a buy signal. That buy signal is right 85, 86% of the time. This is a good chart. Are we going higher? Yes. Are we going to level 4? Yes. Could we go higher than that? Yes, if we get a euphoric phase. But let's look at some other data regarding this too, not just the TA. This is the pair of the TA, and you can see where that support is around that level 1. Could it go lower? Yeah. Is it going to? No, not with the ETFs. But let's look at the pumpamentals. Shout out to Ivan on Tech. I love that word from him. Now, I know Bitcoin's a store of value and Solana is a global machine that runs all of crypto. Two very different animals. But if you look at the sheer difference between what one blockchain does and what the other one does, it's crazy. If this was a traditional business, I don't know, like a social network or a retail store or whatever, a technology firm, like an AI company, the valuation of Solana would be infinitely higher. Okay. That's just a fact of life. Solana makes a lot more money, has 800% more users, does 30,000% more transactions, is 10 million% faster. Okay. It is, chalk and cheese. You can't even compare these two things. Will fundamentals kick in one day? The answer is probably yes. Now, the other thing, which is a tailwind for Solana, why I believe it could outperform Bitcoin over the next 2 quarters, is altcoins do very well in the latter half of the year. We're coming into that time, and we have 9 new ETFs coming. VanEck, 21 shares, Bitwise, Canary, Grayscale, Franklin Templeton, Fidelity, CoinShares. These are all huge players that tell their customers to allocate. Remember, Solana is a very small asset compared to Ethereum, and Ethereum had the Grayscale hangover. This one doesn't, which is good. Now, I believe from that perspective, yes, for the next 2 months, 2 quarters, till the end of the year, there's a very good chance that Solana will outperform. And I will say that now in a non-financial advice way. Hope that helps. Always restless. Hey, James, could the team panel provide thoughts on potential impacts of the tariff pause and trade agreements in the month of July? Can we expect some bottom fishing? This is interesting because this will help us position for the markets. There's lots of crazy stuff happening in the markets, but the markets are at all-time highs. Nobody saw this coming except for people that watch this channel. But U.S. stocks are up. A lot of optimism over a trade deal coming. We already have the U.S. has done trade deals with the U.K. and Vietnam, and China is not fully penned yet, but it's pretty close. Global stocks are down, showing a broader concern or more confidence in the U.S. stocks. So the money's flowing into U.S. stocks. And the U.S. dollar has weakened, which means the market's very skittish and cautious. So what happens next remains to be seen, but there's a couple of little pieces of news. First of all, the tariffs are generating a ton of money, 300 billion. Weaving it back to Bitcoin like I like to do, the US government could buy 3 million Bitcoin with this tariff money that just came in over the last couple of months or whatever. Huge. Okay, 300 billion buys a lot. So they should do that. And they have hinted at using tariff revenue to buy Bitcoin. I hope they do. That would be fantastic. But the tariffs are postponed again. So they're not going to be settled on July 9th. They're moving it now to August 1st. Again, that's about the 3rd or 4th delay for tariffs. And this is a bullish sign, which means the markets can rest for the next 3 weeks. And that will bring the markets higher. So don't expect a bottom dip. If anything, this is pretty bullish news